All right, welcome to Fantasy Football Island, powered by FanStream Sports Ohio. Go to the website, fanstreamsports.com. Download the FanStream Sports app, available on Apple and Android for around-the-clock programming. You can also find us on all your favorite streaming services. It is me running solo tonight on the island. My partner in crime, Jeff Thidoff, is in the middle of a draft, so he is not able to join me this evening, but that's all right. We will still be able to bring you the most up-to-date and best content around. So I'm your solo host, Chad Rink. Follow me on X at Chad Ochorinco. You can also follow Jeff Tito Thidoff at Fit Happens on the X. So got a good show today. We're going to talk about players that are at the end of drafts that could be potential fantasy gold for your teams. But we do have some news and notes to talk about. And I'm going to talk about the first one that just came through. I'm getting bombarded as a Bears fan about this news. My coworker who's a Bears fan sent it to me. My one brother who's a Bears fan sent it to me. My 16-year-old is a Bears fan, sent it to me. So far, my 18-year-old who is a Packers fan has not sent it to me, but it's probably because he is working his job and he cannot access it right now. But he is probably going to let me have it when I get home. So ESPN sources, Cowboys are trading three-time All-Pro linebacker Micah Parsons to the Green Bay Packers. Parsons and the Packers already have reached agreement on a 4-year, $188 million contract. I don't know what all the details are of the deal yet. I'm just now getting it, where it doesn't really affect too much fantasy-wise unless you're doing an IDP, which even then you're going to draft Micah Parsons no matter what team he's on. The one impact fantasy-wise, I think, for this is it's going to help the Cowboys passing game, which Jeff and I are already all on top of, because without Micah Parsons, that defense is going to be less good. So they're going to give it more points, which means Dallas is going to have to score more. And with their running backs of Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders, and Blue, they're not going to be able to run the ball, milk the clock most likely. So it's going to be the Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens show. And so far I've been trying to get all the Prescott Pickens shares and fantasy drafts that I can. So I am excited about the news on that end as a Bears fan, thinking that they could maybe make the playoffs. This makes the Packers, I think, puts them to where they can maybe push the Lions for the division, but I think it squarely puts the Packers as the second best team in the NFC North. Some other news that we have not talked about that have happened that you need to know before you go to your drafts, as this is the draft weekend. If you need somebody to draft for you, as you see up here, Fantasy Draft Proxies, go to fantasydraftproxies.com. If you need someone to draft because you can't make it or you just have not done well in your drafts over the years and you want an expert to come draft for you, Jeff, myself, and a couple other people do that. So if you need someone to draft for you, go to Fantasy Draft Proxies, put all the information in. We will get a drafter assigned to you, and we will bring you a championship probably. Okay. Brian Robinson was dealt to the 49ers. So for me, I didn't really move him up or down in where I was going to draft him. I was drafting him when he was with the Commanders, thinking he was going to be more of like a goal line back with Eckler and Bill Krosky-Merritt kind of handling most of the other duties. Now he's really a CMC handcuff. I think this moves Isaac Guerrero kind of really undraftable and just maybe a waiver wire pickup if both B-Rob and CMC go down. So Guerrero is really irrelevant for me right now. But then the bigger question, I think, is what is the Washington backfield going to look like? How are the shares going to be divvied up? Bill Krosky-Merritt is the hot name here the last few weeks in fantasy drafts. In the Fantasy Draft Proxies, someone had sent out that in an auction draft, he went for like $23, which I think is kind of insane. And he is really moving up draft boards where you could have gotten him if you drafted early. You probably could have got him with one of your last picks. Now he's really kind of moving up in the middle of the drafts. He's probably going around RB 25. So it's going to be interesting to see how they use him. I kind of think Eckler is the value here in this backfield. I think they're going to use Eckler. Eckler is not that far removed away from a RB2 in fantasy. He is great out of the backfield in receiving. So a PPR, I could see him getting 70 receptions if he stays healthy in this offense. And I think it's going to be a split, but I think Eckler is going to get the majority of the work, at least early on. I do like both being drafted, but Eckler is now being drafted, I believe, behind Lil Bill. Adam Thielen goes to Minnesota, going back to Minnesota. I think it makes him a little bit more relevant if you believe in the Minnesota offense and J.J. McCarthy and Kevin O'Connell, at least for the first 3 games while Jordan Addison's out, that Thielen can come in. He is a little bit on the older side, but he still was very productive last year. I believe he had about 50 catches, 600 plus yards, 5-6 touchdowns for the Panthers. The Viking offense should be better than what the Panthers offense was last year. He's going to be he'll probably be the third option in the passing game behind Jefferson, and I think Hawkinson would probably be too. But Thielen could have some relevance in the early part of the season, especially those first 3, 4, 5 games while Addison's out, and then trying to get back into the swing of it. I think Thielen is still going to be used in 3 wide receiver sets as well, so he does have relevance, and you can get him pretty late. And I think he is the new Rashee Rice as an early season gem to maybe get some quality out of your flex position. And then I think it makes Xavier Legette and Jalen Coker interesting as the wide receiver 2s in Carolina. If you believe Carolina is going to take that step forward, it could be something where that wide receiver 2, whoever that is, could have value, especially if they go ahead and they double tet. One of those guys could emerge. You can get them both pretty much for nothing. I think Coker, he's usually not getting drafted. Legette is usually in the teen rounds, right around the kickers and the defenses. So talked about Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice does get a 6 games of suspension. He does agree with the league, he and his team. So they will not have that September 30th meeting to discuss the suspension because he agreed to the 6-game suspension, and it's going to start week 1. So he will miss the first 6 weeks of the NFL season. The Chiefs do have a week 10 bye. So he will come back for 3 weeks, 7, 8, 9, week 10 bye. And then you will have him for the last few weeks of the fantasy regular season and in playoffs if you make that. So he is currently being drafted as the wide receiver 26 with an ADP of 51. He's still kind of falling in those middle rounds, more likely rounds 7 and 8, where before this, and you thought you had him in the first 4 weeks, he was going more like in the late 4th, early 5th. So I don't mind taking a chance on him. If you happen to have a league where you can put guys on IR or have a suspension, like if you can use a suspension on the IR, then yeah, I have no problem doing that. If not, then it's one of those, do you want to have a roster spot for a guy that's not going to play for 6 weeks? So that's I think he can be productive down the stretch. But I wasn't really drafting much of Rashee Rice before this news came out, and now I still probably not going to draft him unless the value is just way too good, and I don't really like anybody else around there. And then maybe pick him up because then you can always use it as a trade piece later on as well. It does make Xavier Worthy. I think his draft stock's probably going to slide up slightly. He may end up getting into the fourth round. So I do like Worthy now because I think he can have some big early weeks with Rice being out. Find out Joe Mixon is definitely going to be out the first 4 weeks. This foot injury, he's had a Liz Frank in the past. He's at the later end in his 20s, near 30. I'm not sure he plays a snap for the Texans this year. I wasn't really drafting Mixon before this news. I am just all out on Joe Mixon this year in all formats of leagues, dynasty, redrafts, keeper, everything. I'm out on it. What I'm going to just throw this out there. I know the Jets have been talking about their love for Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis, and it kind of seems like the Jets do not want to pay Breece Hall for his next contract. So that's going to be an interesting development, watching how the Jets backfield operates early in the season, because if it's really a 50-50 between Hall and Allen, I think there could be a lot of teams calling the Jets to see what it would take to get Breece Hall on their team. And I think the Texans would be number one to bring in a guy with the talent that Breece Hall has. He's still very young. And I think that because from what you hear, Nick Chubb just looks washed. I love Nick Chubb's one of my all-time favorite guys in fantasy. I loved him in college. He just looks washed. Woody Marks is a rookie. I just think if Houston's really wanting to make a run to the playoffs, they need a legitimate bell cow back, and Breece Hall could be that for them. So that's one to watch early on to see what Breece Hall's usage is. And if you are not a Breece Hall owner after first 2 weeks and he's only getting 45-50% of the carries, not looking good, because that Jets offense is probably not going to score a ton. Justin Fields may steal some goal line touches from him. After a couple of weeks, I would probably look out, maybe reach out to the Breece Hall owner in your league and see if you can get him for pennies on the dollar, hoping that he goes to a place like the Texans or another team, like maybe even Dallas. He wouldn't even have to leave the state at that point. So that's something to keep an eye on. And those are the things I think you need to think of during the season and think ahead, like, okay, I'm planning week 2, see where Breece Hall or someone like that is. And then already kind of formulating, once you have your team, what kind of offer you want to make to the Breece Hall owner. Okay, as you know, the theme of the show today is Don't You Forget About Me. Yes, Simply Red hit from the 80s and from the 80s movie The Breakfast Club. So I actually just watched the episode of Psych. And if you don't watch Psych, if you did not watch Psych, you need to do that. It is a phenomenal show. It was on USA for 8 years. You can catch it on the Peacock network, and I think on Hulu or one of those as well. It is hilarious. Cast is phenomenal. It just references. So if you love just referencing the 80s and just smart writing and hilarity, go watch Psych and you can thank me later. But I just watched the episode where they had the high school reunion, and they had the song in it, and they kind of referenced a bunch of John Waters films. So Don't You Forget About Me. So these are guys that are running. I'm not going to really hit quarterbacks. Quarterbacks is a weird one because you only need one quarterback. Most teams are only going to draft one. So there's a lot of quarterbacks that just don't get drafted that are good. So I'm not going to really hit quarterbacks. I'm just going to talk about running backs that are currently at ADP as a running back 30 or later, wide receiver 50 or later, tight end 15 or later. So here's some guys that I think you may forget about, but you shouldn't, because if things go well for them, they really could be league winners for you. So the first one is currently as the running back 34, and that is Travis Etienne. And I know anytime you have these backfields where there is ambiguity in it, where there's just either one or two, or in this situation, 3 running backs with Etienne, Bigsby, and Tootin, you're not sure how it's going to shake out. Like, don't be afraid to take a chance on some of these, especially in an offense that expects to be good or better than last year, which I think the Jags will be. People talk about how Etienne had a horrible year last year. It was not great. And the fact that people are sour on Etienne is because you had to spend a second or third round pick on him last year, and he was just horrible at that draft capital. What is interesting is, if I didn't know this till you start looking at the stats, I would have thought Tank Bigsby would have had a better fantasy season than Etienne. He did not. Etienne was I think he was the running back 35, and Bigsby was the running back 36. They were back to back, but Etienne had a slightly better fantasy season than Bigsby. Etienne also had the majority of the receptions out of the backfield. Bigsby does not do any work out of the backfield. He only had 9 receptions out of the backfield. Ernest Johnson had more receptions than Tank Bigsby did for the Jags last year. So I think if you know Liam Cohen, what he did with Rashad White and Bucky Irvin, I believe they combined for 85, 90 receptions last year. Etienne's really the only guy who can catch out of the backfield. I think Tootin can, but as a rookie, they may not be able to trust him early on. So I think Etienne could have a huge role, and I think he's just more talented than Bigsby. I don't think Bigsby's very good. So Etienne could be, if he can get back to anywhere near what he was a few years ago, that could be a steal at running back 34. We talked about Austin Eckler. He's going as the running back 39. I'm not going to dive in more than what I already just said, but Eckler could be a sneaky one because I don't think people are he's not a sexy pick because he's older. He's in a running back by committee, and the guy that he's in the committee with is the darling of the preseason right now. So Eckler could be a huge steal for you because he's not that far removed from a wide running back to finish. One guy that I like, and he's kind of starting to go up draft boards quite a bit, is Miami Dolphin rookie Ollie Gordon. He is currently as the running back 57. He is moving up boards. He is going a lot earlier. People are starting to get a little buzz on him because Jalen Wright is hurt. Devon Achane is nursing an injury. You could go into week 1 and neither Achane or Wright may play, and it would be Ollie Gordon's backfield. They're playing the Colts in Indy in a dome. So Gordon could be one of those week 1 standouts, and probably, if he was not drafted, be a huge fab get on the waiver wire going into week 2. So I do like Ollie Gordon. If you are still waiting to draft, which you should, keep an eye on Ollie Gordon as one of your later running backs. Another one just thrown out there is Sean Tucker. He's going as the running back 81, so he's mostly going undrafted. That Bucs backfield, we saw what happened last year with Bucky Irving. If he's buried in that backfield, but I think he could overtake Rashad White as the RB2. He's younger than White. And if anything were to happen to Irving, I think Tucker could slide in and he could be the RB1 for that team. So just a guy, like, that's what you want on these late round flyers. Jeff and I are going to do a podcast later on where we talk about like roster construction. So that's the kind of stuff you want to do later in there, is take these upside guys that may not have a path, but could have one. And if they get a opportunity, they could really seize that, and then they could really pan out for you. Okay, those are the running backs. If you go to receivers, so these are wide receivers that are going later than the wide receiver 50. I already talked about Adam Thielen. He's going as the wide receiver 60. I think that's more of a short term early on. Like Adam Thielen's the kind of guy where if you went running back early and heavy and your first 5 picks, you have one receiver. I think Adam Thielen's a guy you can try to grab late, and then he can help you out early in the season until you can, maybe get a waiver wire pick, make a trade here and there. But I think Adam Thielen can help you out for the first couple of weeks of the season. Rashad Bateman's going at wide receiver 58. You would think at some point there would be a Ravens wide receiver that just breaks out. I think Bateman has a better chance than Zay Flowers to break out. He's got some size. It's not bad to take a chance on a wide receiver of a high-powered offense. So I like Bateman over Flowers based on where they're being drafted right now. So Bateman's another one where if you need a receiver, he's on a good offense. He's a younger guy. He's been in the system for a while. So he's got that familiarity with Lamar Jackson. So not a bad option. And if he could end up being a wide receiver 1 for the Ravens. Another guy that I like that I seem to draft a lot, if I don't get Keenan Coleman, then I usually try to get Josh Palmer. He's going as the wide receiver 75. Right now, he's the third receiver in Buffalo, but I believe he will go out of the slot some. He was very productive when he had the opportunity with the Chargers when they had injuries and when Quentin Johnson could not catch. So I think Palmer is a quality wide receiver. And in a Buffalo offense where I think they're going to need somebody to be like a safety blanket for Allen. If Coleman's getting double teamed, Shakir, I think Palmer can carve himself out a nice little piece of that Buffalo passing game. So at wide receiver 75, why not take a chance again? You want wide receivers that are in good offenses. That's who usually are the ones that come out of nowhere and really outdo their draft capital, are the wide receivers on top scoring offenses. So I'm not saying Josh Palmer is going to be the wide receiver 1 for Buffalo, but there is a world where he could. And then the last one is a rookie that I've liked, I think, coming out. I'm surprised he did not get drafted higher than he did in the NFL draft. I'm not excited about his team, but I'm also not scared of the wide receiver they just brought in Amari Cooper, and that's Deonta Thornton. If you've seen him, he is a monster. He kind of gives off DK Metcalf like just body size type. He's not as big and freaky as DK, but he's a big receiver. You've got Pete Carroll there, and I don't really like Jacoby Myers. I think on most teams would be a wide receiver 2 or 3. I think Deonta Thornton could become the wide receiver 1 on a Raiders team that I don't think is going to be great, but I think with Carroll and Chip Kelly there, Geno Smith is a serviceable quarterback, and he was a QB5 once upon a time a few years ago with Pete Carroll at the helm. So I think the Raiders can be a middle of the road offense. And if Deonta Thornton can become the wide receiver 1, be Geno's guy, if he's getting 7 to 8 targets a game, that could be interesting. I know Brock Bowers is there and he's going to get most of them, but Deonta Thornton could be a nice steal for you at 78. And the tight ends, there were a lot of tight ends. And again, we've talked about it. Here's how you need to draft tight ends. You need to draft one of the elite ones. And I think this year there's only 3 elite ones. It's Bowers, it's McBride, and it's Kittle. Bowers is usually going early second. McBride is now going mid, late second, early third. And then Kittle usually goes off the board mid to late third. So if you want one of those tight ends, you are going to have to use one of your first 3 picks to get them. So you've got to, that's a cost. You got to see if that's worth taking or not. And I will say this, and we've talked about it before on this show. If you take a tight end or a quarterback in your first 3 or 4 rounds, do not grab the other. So if you take Bowers in the second, I would advise you to not take like a Hurts or a Burrow in the 4th. Taking a quarterback and a tight end with 2 of your first 4 picks really hamstrings your team. And that's why you should do mock drafts. Do a mock draft. I do mock drafts a lot, and I do a mock draft and I draft how I wouldn't, just to see what it would look like if I took Bowers or McBride, or what if Josh Allen was there at the beginning of the third, and I took him just to see what the makeup of my team is. Who's then going to be there rounds 5 and 6? Do I like it? Do I not like it? How to play that if you do, because sometimes it could be like if Josh Allen fell and he was like at the back end of the third, it would be, I think, difficult to not think about drafting him because of what he can bring to that quarterback position week in, week out. But if you go quarterback early, do not grab a tight end early. And if you take a tight end early, I would not draft a quarterback early, and I would mock draft it and do that and see what it looks like. So tight ends, if you're not going to get one of those early ones, then I would just wait till the end. Ingram, Laporta, Hawkinson, I think all those guys are similar, but I would rather take a chance on some of these later guys and hope that they would jump up and give you similar production as the Hawkinsons, Laportas, Ingrams, those types of guys. So first one is Jake Ferguson is going as the tight end 16. We've talked about it again and again. That Dallas offense is going to be good. Pickens, Lamb, they're going to get a lot of attention. And then you've got Jake Ferguson going up one-on-one against teams' linebackers or their nickel coverage corner, which he is much bigger than. So he could win a lot of matchups, be a safety net over the middle. I don't think Dallas really has that elite back coming out of the backfield to catch a ton of targets. So if Jaden Blue had 50 receptions, I think that would be huge. And I think that's his ceiling. So there's going to be a lot of Dak's going to throw the ball 40, 45, 50 times this year, almost every game, and getting a tight end as that and part of that offense as the tight end 16. Sign me up for that. I'm just going to say it. You can say it with me. Kyle Pitts, tight end 17. I am not drafting Kyle Pitts. I just don't know what this Atlanta offense could be. Ideally, at their ceiling, they should be able to move the ball. When Penix Envy was at the helm in the last 3 games, they ran in the upper end of plays per game. So I think with Penix at the helm, Bijan, London, Mooney, I think Atlanta will probably be a top 10 plays per game team, which I would always want a part of on offense, because the more plays you run, the more stats you can accumulate, and that leads to more points. So slower offenses, just like the Jets, those types of teams, they're not going to be able to generate as many points because they don't have as many plays to get those points. So ceiling, Kyle Pitts, yes, he could be a top 5 tight end. I just don't know if I want to take the chance on that when you've got these other tight ends around there that I think are in better positions that we have a little bit more clarity on. One of my favorite ones, if I am waiting on tight end, is Hunter Henry at 19. We talked about him on our Hello, Is It Me You're Looking For podcast, which you should check that out because it's pretty clever and it's Lionel Richie. So you cannot go wrong with that. But Hunter Henry, he is getting Josh McDaniel back as his OC. He was very productive and had 9 touchdowns in the last time that McDaniels was as his OC. And that was the high in his career, was nine touchdowns. So I think Drake May and the Patriots are going to be better. I don't think they are going to be elite like everyone is expecting them to be. And I think Hunter Henry is going to be a nice little security blanket along with TreVeyon Henderson out of the backfield for Drake May. So Hunter Henry, I think, is going to be a huge goal line guy for him. And I can see him getting another 8 to 10 touchdowns for the Patriots this year. And the last one is another Jaguar. Cause again, I think the Jaguar offense is going to get better. I don't think there's really any competition for Brenton Strange at the tight end position for the Jags. So I do like Brenton Strange. I am all on board. Brian Thomas Jr. is the unequivocal number 1 for the Jags offense. He is going to see the majority of the targets. I am not sold that Travis Hunter is going to play 80, 90% of the wide receiver 2 snaps. I just don't think he's going to be able to do that because I think they need him more as a DB. And I just don't think he's going to be able to do what he did in college at the NFL level. So I think he's going to be more probably a 25 to 30% offensive snap guy. I think his ceiling is probably going to be 50% of the snaps. And he's going to be one of those guys where they will probably just use him to come out when you know it's going to be a passing down, and he's not going to be playing a lot of running downs, which is going to maybe be bad for the offense. Because if you have something like that, that's a little tell. And if they were playing the Houston Astros, they'd probably be banging on the trash can when Hunter Henry was in, whatever the sign would be for it's a pass play. Travis Hunter is in. That would be it. So they got to just try to use him. I just don't think he's going to get a lot of the like 65, 75 or an above snap count. So Brenton Strange, I think, is going to be the number 2 option in the passing game for the Jags. We talked about it in one of our previous shows about teams that are kind of sneaky. The Jags are that way. Liam Cohen gets the ball moving. His quarterbacks throw for 43, 4,500 plus yards, can get close to 30 or more touchdowns. And Brenton Strange, I think Brenton Strange can get you a 70 catch, 750 yard, 8 touchdown line. And that's pretty good for a tight end that's going as the tight end 21. And a lot of times he's usually getting drafted. He's usually getting drafted as a guy that's just waiting on tight end or sometimes as a second tight end. So you can get him for relatively nothing at all. So again, these are guys, don't forget about these types of guys. I think it's sometimes easy to brush off like an Ollie Gordon or a Sean Tucker, Josh Palmer, those types of guys, even Eckler because of his age. And it's not that sexy Bill Krosky merit pick, but those are the kind of guys down late. I do prefer you taking upside on like younger rookie, second, third year guys than guys like Eckler or Adam Thielen and Hunter Henry. But I think those guys all have opportunities and are in positions to help you out in not costing you a whole lot of draft capital. All right. Well, thank you. That was the show for today. Please check us out on FanStream Sports Ohio, which happens to be up on the thing there. Check us out. Go back, fanstreamsports.com. Get all the information there. Download whatever your preferred podcast listening device is. Download it. Get notifications. Check us out on YouTube. If you do check us out on YouTube, please hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. It just helps us out. And then it'll let you know when things are going on in the FanStream Sports arena. I also comment. I like having comments, even if it's like you are an idiot. Your take is so bad. I don't care. Like I'm not going to yell at you. I'm not going to be mad at you. Like that's fine. We can have a conversation about why my take is bad, why you think that. Follow us, Jeff and I, again, Fantasy Football Island. I am at Chad Ocho Rinco. He, who is Jeff Thidoff, is at Fit Happens. He will be joining me next time. Take care. And this is the big week for draft. So if you have any draft questions, hit us up on X. Check us out. Go to Fantasy Draft Proxies if you need someone to draft for you, or if you want someone to help you run your team. We have those options available as well. Again, thank you so much and have a great Labor Day weekend.